going to direct the first question here to Dave. I think I want to set the landscape a little bit. I think there's a lot of conversation happening around what these new consumer behaviors are vis-a-vis technology, and I'd like to understand from his point of view what some of those interesting and new emerging behaviors are.
Well, there are so many, and it really depends on the users that we're talking about, the people like us. Forget customers, consumers. We who are people all come in different shapes, sizes, ages, all kinds of things. So it's going to be hard to give one specific thing. But 3 areas that we focus on a lot would have to be, and not so surprising around mobile, but mobile is the remote control for our lives. Like, the fact is that it is a computer, yes, but it's not actually going to be the smartest computer we have. The peripherals and the things and the wearable devices that we have in the world, the connected devices that we'll be using, that area is of importance to us because that's how we live our lives, and that's how we will be living our lives in the very near future. The second area that we would be focusing on is multitasking, like the aspect of what's going on at home in the living rooms. And I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit about that shortly, but the reality is multitasking, binge viewing, all these different kind of habits that we have now created for ourselves with respect to content, with respect to entertainment. That's an area that we have to look at. A lot of our advertising dollars for our clients go into those kinds of platforms where people are using for entertainment and whatnot. And then the last one I would say is for us, well, I mean, I'd say those two, but sort of real-time, real aspects, things that are happening in real life now, live events, things that are happening in shared experience amongst people. Those would be, oh, and one more I would have to say, without a doubt, is shopping. And that can be physical and digital. So maybe I just said 4. But I would say that shopping, which again will probably create a lot of discussion around here, how is the future of shopping, future of retail, what are these things that are changing? Those are the consumer behaviors that we're quite keen on, sort of helping to crack the code on.
Fantastic. Always give the audience a little bit more. I appreciate that.
Here to serve.
Excellent. So Catherine, I wonder, in our conversation over the phone leading up to this, you talked about this sort of 360-degree experience that is something that you're really interested in. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how you see that shaping the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I think, when we're thinking about really developing innovative programs with advertising partners or even the marketing that we're doing for ourselves as a company, we're always trying to think about how we can reach consumers in the places that they are. So, 75% of people who watch television are multitasking in some way, shape, or form, so that it's no longer working with advertising partners to just do an integration on Top Chef. At the same time, they also need to have an integration in the online experience. But even beyond that, you have to think about the next step that they're taking, whether it's from watching a video online related to the show, or then they want to learn more about chicken recipes, so they're going to the next follow-on site, so that we can really follow them based on their passion points and connect with them at every step along the way. So I think that that's a major evolution for us as a business, is thinking kind of beyond the businesses that are within the NBC Universal box, if you will, and expanding it into the universe of what people are really doing in their daily lives, and connecting with them seamlessly at every point, and making sure that the storytelling that we are delivering to them works for the platform and the moment that they're in.
Excellent. And I think, Eddie, you mentioned something that I feel is maybe similar. You talked about this notion of extending the screen, and I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what that means in the context of the type of work that you're doing.
Sure. I think that extension that we're talking, that brand extension, that brand experience, so much, I mean, just even a recent memory, it's been sort of bifurcated. It ends up being a situation where they're almost separate campaigns, and I think a lot of what we're trying to find out, sort of what Catherine was mentioning about the evolution part of it, is actually sometimes I feel like I'm a therapist with our brands, because they're not accustomed for all of those things having connective tissue. So as we need to meet our audiences where they're at, we also have to be very aware that we don't talk above our audiences, not talk below them or either on the side, but really try to hit the sweet spot of where they are. And I feel a lot of that is what you've heard today, which is this sense of authenticity and real meaning. And having a meaningful engagement is what I think, at least at this particular time in the marketplace, is what is really the most impactful.
Excellent. And Tim, obviously with the work that you're doing with Avery, it's manifesting some of this cross-platform into the real world and making that connection from offline into online. So maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the experiences that you're helping create with your brand partners.
Yes. Well, our industry is really very different from and that's why I'm a little bit of Northern out here, I think, from yours, because we have or at least our customers have a very physical element to their business, right? They have stores out there that we need to bring customers to. Some of them have thousands of them, 4,000 stores or something. So the kind of experience that you can that you can create online or through media very, very quickly, where you can press specific buttons on the dot and you can change track really quickly and also quite cheaply compared to my industry, is creating a little bit of havoc on my side. We have our retailers with an online presence and also a very physical presence. They can press these buttons very quickly online and change that tag in which way they're going, and that creates an expectation in the customer that doesn't translate into the real world where they go out and that experience doesn't happen in the mall, right? So it's very hard for our customers to try and tie these two diverging streams of their interaction with their consumers back together and make that integrated, right? They're diverging more and more because the retail space out there right now is pretty tough. So any kind of decision you want to make to rebrand or to adjust how your stores operate or something, the risk of failure is so large and so expensive that people tend to be stuck in very traditional ways of operating and very, very hesitant of implementing change. And there's only a couple of really sort of key brands that are trying to, they're also in a position to be able to do this, they're trying to bring this integration to the marketplace and have that happening for their consumers. So, for example, we're working with Burberry at the moment, and we've created this interactive store for them on Regent Street in London, where you have all the merchandise there enabled with RFID chips that create, let's say, a more interactive experience with the actual product, right? So that if you take something you want to try on into the changing room recognizes not only you as a customer, but also the product that you've brought in, the size, the color, and everything of it. So if you want to change something, you just literally hit a panel on the wall, like an iPad-like thing that lets you change the size, the color, whatever you want to do. It also interacts with you in as much that it can show you a video of the creation of the product, and so it becomes a more interactive experience. But the link of bringing the online thing together with the real world is still very hard to tackle there. So Burberry is probably out there leading that charge. They're also able to do this. They're small enough on a scale with physical stores to transform themselves. So we have a high enough profit margin to afford.
Hey Tim, I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to bring this back a little bit into that sort of brand conversation and how these new sort of leading edge innovations and what that conversation looks like. And I wonder, Dave, you sort of describe yourself as sitting in the sort of middle of a lot of these different conversations, and I wonder how that role has changed, or in many ways, what those conversations look like, and how you're trying to help convince brands how to sort of take advantage of these opportunities.
Well, I think that, first of all, the courage that you are helping to instill in clients, that actually is a very critical component, because test and learn is a major function in trying to build on top of technological advancements. So what we try to do is build value on top of technology. When the technology rolls out, it doesn't really have a concept attached to it that a brand can just readily pick up and say, that technology is great. Mobile detection knows when a MAC address is sensed, doesn't mean anything to a retailer. But when you can tie that retail experience to seamless CRM, and that profile, when it's matched with a personal profile versus anonymous, means something to a retailer. So I think it was Neiman Marcus that actually was one of the first to innovate. How do you take a MAC address and tie it together with a Facebook profile? You walk in the door and they know Dave Rosenberg's there, right? That's early stage stuff. But the reality is Our job is to help these clients figure out what is the value to the consumer on the other side. So it always comes back, in my mind, to user experience. Forget privacy laws, forget all the legal stuff because you have to adhere to that anyway. What about the creep out effect? And that's something that we really have to sort of navigate with them. And I heard it today, just because you can't do it doesn't mean you should. So we look at things from the living room experiences, what you can do, whether it's against binge viewing or whether it's walking into a store. I think from a retail perspective, what's fascinating is the experiences that you're helping brands create is not only helping to bridge the gap a little bit between digital, but it's giving physical retail a purpose, an experience you can't get online, right? It's not just bridging a gap between digital experience, it's giving a value to going to a store.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of areas that I think it manifests as you're counseling brands. Value to the end user is obviously, to me, the most critical one of them all.
Could I?
Yes.
So, I think that it's interesting, the idea that the retail experience and technology, even for us as an entertainment company, we confront some of those same issues in, the TV experience is not enough anymore for consumers. And consumers are light years ahead of media companies and agencies, and they're doing things that we're all just sort of learning about, but that with partnerships like, we're working very closely with ZBox on a cross-company initiative, we need to find a way to bring the television screen to life, to make it leap off the page, just like you would in a retail experience, that everybody sort of expects this 360 immersive experience and on-demand content no matter where they are. And that part of the challenge and the opportunity for us is figuring out the best way to connect with them as advertisers or partners or media companies in all of those individual moments. And the opportunity is increasing if we're willing to experiment, especially with things that are a little different and a little new. Part of the challenge is figuring out how to do all of that at scale, which is something that we're all very focused on.
With one of our technology clients, the two-screen experience is a perfect example of that. So much of what's happening now, it's not just the panel or the screen in front of you, it's that other device in your hand and the directional connections with that. And that also enhances that shopping experience potentially and changes the game a little bit. I do have to say one thing that I find really interesting is that we're of a generation where the privacy concerns are a big tantamount. And David, I know you face this, but I tell you that with a younger audience that's more digitally savvy, those things about preferences and the ability to walk into a store and be known is less scary for a younger generation as it is for us. So I think those things, those handholds that we are so accustomed to and behaviors that we're needing in a younger demographic and a younger generation, they just don't care. And I think that'll be a perception shift for many of the things in the way we work with our brands to create those connections. So.
Tim, I'm curious in terms of trying to help create some of these conversations or experiences within the physical retail environment. What are some of the challenges in trying to convince brands that this is the right move for them? Is it simply a matter of cost and scale, or are there other obstacles that you need to sort of help them through?
Well, there are just so many different opportunities to do something that the temptation to let's say to back the wrong horse, right, is pretty big, and so and because of the involved cost, it's a very big step for them to buy into something on a large scale. They tend to do it from our perspective. Currently, we are world leaders in RFID implementation, so that's something that works for them through the system in the back end as well, for stock take, for logistics, etc. But it has an element that you can also make work as a consumer interaction piece. So the case for that specific technology is pretty good for them because they can argue it away and basically make it pay for itself and then add the experience on top of it. And that enables them to buy into that and make that decision quite easily. That's by no means the reason that it's the right technology to do this with, but it happens to be the one that currently ticks the boxes that they can square away, right? So looking forward, there might be completely different things out there that actually enable this interaction and this integration. And so we're looking actively into what that might be. And but because when we're talking about integration, we all have exactly the same customers, right? So integration really has to be pan-industry. Right? So whatever the technology is that makes that link up needs to work on a really massive scale. And so it's a much bigger conversation that we could be having on our own with our retail partners or something. It's a conversation that we need to be having with you guys, for example, as well. So that we're all backing the right horses respectively rather than developing diverging technologies again, right?
And I think the thing that's interesting about that is that and I know many of the agencies that are here are facing the same thing, is that we're having to play in the same sandbox together. I mean, that's a unique thing, a unique time, and the fact that new technologies are being developed, brands and networks and channels are demanding that they put, and also our brands are asking and insisting that we're all in the same sandbox together. And I spend a considerable amount of time in the last year, for example, working with my other creative directors and other people who are working in different parts of the business. So there's a retail experience on one side, an online and the other. And it's really the consistency of that branded experience is the most important thing. So at the end of the day, we are sort of serving one master, which in a lot of ways is the consumer on one level, but also the brand integration.
It's always the consumer, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never not.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just talking to ourselves.
It's true.
I think for the physical retail space, it's really important that they feel they're buying into the right tech, right? So the more partners you can bring to the table, the more complete you can make the picture for them, and so that they can also see that their consumer is served by this new technology that we might be implementing on different angles, i.e. the velocity of that technology potentially is really huge. That would be a major factor for them to invest in it. Currently, what you just described, i.e. let's say this 360 experience, that the branding experience is consistent, is handicapped by the physical retail space being so vast and so expensive to change. So while I can move the virtual space closer to the customer to duplicate that and complete that picture for them in a physical space is a big task. So in order to move that forward, they need to have a really secure bet, really the pony that definitely wins. I need to dope all the other ones or get them drunk, right? So I need to have one that will run and win that prize for all of us, and that's the one that they're going to back because it's a sure bet.
And to David's point about the consumer, the only way this all works, obviously, is those feedback mechanisms actually have to provide us whether we're hitting the right mark or not. And that's, he's right. I mean, the consumer is the ultimate gauge of whether that's a success or not, but the technology is only as good. It's only the rails, really. I mean, for this whole, for this whole interaction.
Yeah, and just to get back to the sort of shift in the way that agencies, media partners, and sort of technology groups are all working together, I think it's interesting to take a look at how the roles are changing a little bit. And Catherine, during our conversation, you mentioned this notion of the sort of hybrid creative that's almost essential to working in this new industry now. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we see, especially in our role, is that, it used to be when we all started out in this business, there were the creatives and the marketing teams and the sales teams and the production teams. But even looking at what integrated media is, we're kind of all coming together. We are doing some account management. We're doing some creative development. Some of the teams are, they're predators and they're actually making content and talking to clients at the same time. And I think that it is, when I think about the future of what I wish we would all be, I feel like we need to be able to kind of get out of our comfort zone and do programs that we aren't used to doing. So I think, for example, about retail, it's the perfect, bringing NBC Universal assets and retail assets together with an advertising partner. It makes total sense. And those are very hard things to do because in some places we're dealing with agencies that might be very divided on the client side or silos within our own company that make it challenging to bring these incredible ideas that are really demanded by the consumers to life, and the best way that we can really connect with them. You see in some agencies there is this kind of consolidation, hybridization as well, and I think that it's really for us to seek each other out to develop these incredibly innovative programs that change the way we're all working together.
Well, I would say that if we, there's a bit of a wake-up call in the industry right now, and in 5 years' time, if you don't adapt to it, you won't be around to exist to see it in the current form that your business might be in. If you're in a creative media company, media agency, the clients, the brands direct, are looking for big media ideas, big creative ideas. Some of them are now going direct to folks like NBCU and other places and say, build it for me. Absorbing production at the media owner level. What does that mean to creative agencies? How do I get involved in it? I know we're talking about technology here, but this is forcing a monumental shift in the way things were. And the idea of collaboration is something that's talked about on probably every panel, on everywhere I've ever been. It's thrown around like confetti. It's really hard to do, but there is likely a role for it. I think, again, to your point, technology, these are the rails for these are the tool sets we have. And do I have an answer here on the stage? I don't know, but I think that there's got to be an adaptation of the marketplace in order for creative agencies to survive in the current way. I work for a media holding company, media agencies. I mean, we are, the buying and planning process is one thing, but like the demands to do something really different, the value that brands are trying to achieve by being different from their competitors is forcing us to really adapt our business, because they know consumers they see it as just a big, sort of wash of what's going to stand out and what's going to get that, the other confetti word, engagement, right? How do you actually get people to spend time when they are multitasking, and when they are controlling their life, and when they are wearing devices, and when they're walking into stores? Like we're at a really interesting point. I'm not scared of it, but it is something that we all need to sort of realize, that the money, the creative, the whole thing it's not changing. Like there won't not be ad buys tomorrow. There will be, thank goodness. But we really have to kind of wake up to this way to work together.
It's interesting, the forcing function that you talk about is creating a situation where you have to adapt. I mean, I was saying to you, Scott, earlier, the biggest problem that I see is I get remarkable resumes, but it's not people who understand how to extend to that screen experience, or understand. They can be great designers, they know how to do great graphic design, but they can't do the other part. And as David's talking about, the one thing that occurs to me is that is what's going to happen, is that we have to all be the ability to, as Catherine said, to be able to spin those plates and be willing to also share those plates with others too.
That's probably the key.
All right, we're getting short on time, so I'm going to try to get everyone to share one more thought here. Just if you could point to one sort of opportunity for people to seize on, or something that you're really excited about getting the right partner if budget, scale, et cetera, was not an issue, what would those be? And I will, can I start with you?
Sorry, I was still hung up on the last thing you just said.
Feel free.
Okay, sorry. Okay, what I was just going to say is, I mean, you still need very, very specialized designers, though. Otherwise,
agreed.
If they're generalists, they're not going to be hot enough to be really.
100%.
You more need somebody that can manage that kind of integrated process, right?
But it's really critical to have that awareness, and that's sometimes happening, is that's the dividing line, is the awareness piece of understanding the importance of how those things fit together.
Yeah, it's the integration of all the different elements but then you still need to be fantastically strong at these special ones.
Agreed.
So I don't know, in your industry, how far do you think that can work, that you find people that can actually manage that content?
I think it's something new for the industry overall. I think it could be my futuristic point.
Please finish. Please finish.
We just went rogue, people. We just went rogue.
That's a great question.
I can answer both simultaneously. I think that actually when I look into the future and I think about what would be incredible is, from our vantage point, I would like to work more closely with the creative agencies and really be co-developing programs from the start when we have a challenge from an advertiser or a marketer. I think that there is so much ripe opportunity, also with technology partners, that's where we can bring things together that have never been done before because we have the content and the distribution and the assets. And I think that we sometimes dabble in those kinds of programs, but we haven't done as much of it as we could. And I think for media companies, that is an enormous opportunity, especially when they have divisions like the one that I sit in.
All right, guys, because I have to work with peers on Monday, you're gonna have to chat with these guys at the next break and hear what the future is. But I thank you all for having us. I thank all the panelists here. It's been a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of the talks.